Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Matthias. Polish leaders attended solemn ceremonies early on Monday to mark the 86th anniversary of the Nazi German invasion and bombing of Polish territory at the start of World War II. President Karol Nawrocki, Prime Minister Donald Tusk, Defence Minister Władysław Kośniak-Kamysz and Parliament Speaker Szymon Hołownia gave speeches and laid wreaths to honour the heroes. The ceremonies took place at Westerplatte, a Polish military outpost on a peninsula in Gdańsk, where exactly 86 years ago, on the 1st of September 1939, at 4:45 a.m., Germany fired the first shots of the war. A small force of around 210 Polish soldiers heroically defended the outpost for 7 days against overwhelming German forces, becoming a symbol of Polish resistance. The 1939-1945 German occupation of Poland killed more than 5 million Poles. The country also suffered huge losses to its infrastructure, including the destruction of roads, railways, bridges and factories. In his speech, President Karol Nawrocki called for Germany to make war reparations to Poland, while Prime Minister Donald Tusk stressed that, and I quote, "Poles must be wise and understand who is their enemy and who is their ally."
In order to build a partnership with our Western neighbor based on truth and good relations, we must finally resolve the issue of war reparations from the German state, which I, as the President of Poland, unequivocally demand for the common good and for our future. War reparations will not be an alternative to historical amnesia. Poland, as a frontline state, the most important country on NATO's eastern flank, needs justice, truth, and clear relations with Germany, but also reparations from the German state. We must be so strong, we must be so wise, we must be so united that no one from any part of the world will ever again think of attacking our homeland. We must be wise to understand where this great threat comes from today, and with it whom we should unite in the effort to defend Poland and the entire Western world. Our civilization, which is the civilization of freedom. Poland, Europe, NATO, our allies, this is the result of the lesson we learned from the loneliness of 1939. Westerplatte means strength. Westerplatte means hope. Westerplatte means commitment. Those who did not leave their positions in the transit depot for hours, suffering from hunger, scarcity, and bitterness, needed strength and endured hardships. They needed strength which they shared, the strength which they knew united them even though they came from different directions. Westerplatte gave hope to all of Poland.
In a recent interview with TVP World, Jagiellonian University professor Marcin Jarząbek remarked that, and I quote, "using the past is dangerous for the present." He made this statement while referring to Polish President Karol Nawrocki's Second World War anniversary speech, in which the Polish leader called for Germany to make war reparations to Poland.
As a historian, I would say that using past history for contemporary political issues is dangerous, right? So may bring more harm than actually it matters. So we did a lot of reconciliation with Germany, not so much with Russia, in order to kind of not to forget, but to kind of overcome the past, which is obviously difficult and very tragic in many respects, especially in case of World War II.
European capitals are preparing, I quote, "pretty precise plans for potential troop deployments to Ukraine as part of post-war security guarantees," said EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in an interview with the Financial Times. Von der Leyen made her statement during a tour of eastern EU states, where she focused on defense spending and military readiness.
In the interview, von der Leyen said there was a clear roadmap for possible deployments, adding that security guarantees are paramount for a lasting peace in Ukraine. She also confirmed that the plan under discussion could involve tens of thousands of EU troops, supported by US command and control systems, surveillance, and intelligence assets. According to von der Leyen, Those arrangements have already been agreed upon during last month's meeting in Washington between Donald Trump, Volodymyr Zelensky, and EU leaders.
While Brussels discusses scenarios for possible EU troop deployment, Berlin is pushing back on the idea. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz stressed that no one is talking about ground troops in Ukraine at this point. Instead, he argued, the focus must stay on strengthening Ukraine's army now and shaping security guarantees that will lock in its independence once the ceasefire becomes possible.
We are talking about trying to formulate security guarantees in the event of a ceasefire. And the number one priority is to support the Ukrainian army so that they can defend this country in the long term. That is the absolute priority, and we will start doing that now. Many things can only be accomplished once there is a ceasefire. This requires an agreement with Russia, and this agreement will, of course, have conditions on both sides. On our side, the condition is that Ukraine retains its independence in the long term, retains its freedom of alliance, retains its freedom. So that is what we are working on. No one is talking about ground troops in Ukraine at this point.
Leaders from two of the parties in Germany's ruling coalition are on a visit to the Ukrainian capital. While in Kyiv, Jens Spahn of the Christian Democratic Union, Christian Social Union bloc, and Matthias Miersch of the Social Democratic Party will hold talks with Ukrainian authorities on Germany's continuous support for Ukraine and the efforts to end the war. While on the train from the Polish town of Rzeszów to the Ukrainian capital, Spahn said that their visit serves as proof that the German government stands firmly with Ukraine. The German parliamentarian added that their trip is a clear message to the Kremlin that Germany is willing and prepared to continue providing Ukraine with military support. He also accused Vladimir Putin of wanting to continue the war and refusing any peace attempts. Ukrainian authorities detained a suspect in the fatal shooting of Ukrainian politician Andriy Parubi. Aged 54, Parubi was shot dead in Lviv on the 30th of August by an assailant disguised as a courier, prompting a countrywide manhunt. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made the announcement on social media. As stated by Zelensky, the suspect has given an initial testimony and an investigation is underway to establish the circumstances surrounding the murder. Ukraine's Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko added that the suspect was carefully prepared, studied the victim's movements, mapped out his route and planned an escape. Klimenko also congratulated employees of the Security Service of Ukraine who within the first 24 hours of the murder were already on the shooter's trail. Chief of the Ukrainian National Police, Ivan Verkhivsky, later stated that the case seems to include a trail leading to Russia. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin met on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin. During the meeting, also attended by Chinese President Xi Jinping, both leaders emphasized the importance of close cooperation between the two countries. The interaction, described as warm by officials, is the first in-person meeting between Putin and Modi this year. During the meeting, the two officials reviewed key areas of bilateral cooperation, including energy, defense, trade and regional security. People familiar with the conversation described it as constructive and in tune with the long-standing nature of India-Russia relations. One of the key takeaways from the meeting was also the confirmation that Vladimir Putin will travel to India in December for the annual India-Russia summit. The visit is expected to further deepen ties between the two countries and could see the signing of new agreements in sectors like energy cooperation and space technology. The summit in Tianjin closely coincides with the celebrations of the end of World War II in China, which will take place on the 3rd of September. The Victory Day parade will be attended by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Slovakian's Prime Minister Robert Fico and Vladimir Putin, among others. China may hold the last card in swaying Moscow's war strategy, but it's a risky balance. Rostisław Chotin, senior Ukraine editor at Radio Free Europe Radio Liberty, joined TVP World to warn that Xi Jinping's influence over Vladimir Putin could be decisive where others have failed.
There was expectations that President Putin of Russia can listen to only two leaders on the world stage. It's President Trump in the United States and President Xi Jinping in China. With war dragging and no peace deal, no ceasefire, it seems that Putin is rather playing games with Trump. He's not listening to him so far. But maybe Xi Jinping will have influence on Putin. We'll see what he will say. But we know that China wants to end this war. It wants to end this war. But at the same time, it seems that China doesn't want to see Russia losing this war. It's slightly afraid of Ukrainian victory.
The Polish seaport of Gdańsk, a city of freedom and solidarity, celebrated the 31st of August as one of the most important dates in its history. The so-called Gdańsk agreements, signed on that day, allowed for the creation of the Solidarity Trade Union, the largest anti-communist opposition movement in Europe. 45 years later, the city is vibrant, youthful, and attracts millions of tourists.
On August 31st, Poles commemorate the signing of the historic Gdańsk Agreement, which allowed for the creation of the Solidarity Trade Union. In August of 1980, the firing of a beloved crane operator Anna Walentynowicz sparked a strike here in the Gdańsk shipyard, at the time known as the Lenin shipyard. The communist regime had a habit of crushing any dissent with deadly force, but this time the strike spread across the country like wildfire, and Warsaw had no choice but to negotiate. So on August 31st, the Gdańsk Agreement was signed, ending the strike and beginning a new chapter in the history of Poland. Both former and current members of Solidarity movement gathered here to celebrate Poland regaining its freedom.
At that time, we were full of hope, faith and confidence in victory, and we would have paid even with our lives for Poland to be free and sovereign.
The Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk took part in the events of 1980 as a young student.
When 45 years ago we left the Gdańsk shipyard after the victorious Great Strike shouting Solidarity and Lech Wałęsa, we did not yet know that in that moment these words would be heard in every corner of the world. How proud we were that thanks to Poland, solidarity had become one of the fundamental values of the entire West, alongside freedom, equality and respect for every human being. Solidarity was not just a slogan at the time, but something that truly united the Polish people, as well as entire nations and their leaders. It was a real miracle that a Gdańsk shipyard worker, the Pope and the President of the United States all thought the same way at the time.
The Solidarity Trade Union remains active to this day, and the citizens of Gdańsk, both young and old, celebrate the revolutionary history of their city. From Gdańsk, for TVP World, Natalia Komarow.
In Poland, nearly 5 million students are returning to school on Monday, as the academic year officially begins. For almost 400,000 first graders, it will be their very first ring of the school bell. The new school year begins on the 1st of September and will run until the 26th of June. Students can expect two major holiday breaks: Christmas from the 22nd to the 31st of December and Easter from the 2nd to the 7th of April. Winter holidays are spread across 3 separate periods between January and March, depending on the region. Over 200,000 children and youth from Ukraine now study in Polish schools. About 152,000 are refugees who fled the war, and another 51,000 arrived before February 2022. They make up roughly 4% of all students nationwide. The beginning of the school year is a major annual event in Poland, marking a return to classrooms, schedules and ceremonies after the summer break. And with this, we conclude this edition of World News. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.